The October rain pelted down in a relentless drizzle, turning the old field on the edge of Pine Ridge, Oregon, into a churned-up mess of mud and despair. It was 6:47 a.m., the sky, a bruised shade of gray, and the air hung heavy at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, thick with the kind of damp chill that seeped into your bones and stayed there. Sagging pine trees loomed through the fog, their branches clawing at the mist like skeletal fingers. The field, 3 miles out from town, was a forgotten patch of nothing, the kind of place locals avoided unless they had to. They called it curse ground, whispering about cries in the night, shadows that moved when no one was there. Nobody believed the stories, not really, but nobody lingered here either. Eddie Malone, 30, with a scruffy beard and a voice like he'd smoked a pack a day since high school, swung his shovel into the muck with a grunt. His crew was prepping the ground for a new subdivision, fancy houses for folks who didn't know Pine Ridge's ghosts. The bulldozer had broken down an hour ago, so it was back to manual labor, digging test pits for the foundation. Eddie's boots sank into the sludge, each step a wet squelch. He wiped rain from his eyes, cursing under his breath. Damn machine, should have stayed in bed. Quit whining, Malone, called Jimmy, his buddy, from 10 feet away, tossing a clod of dirt at him. You're getting paid overtime. Yeah, for digging in this crap, Eddie shot back, slamming his shovel deeper. The blade hit something hard, a dull thunk that vibrated up his arms. The hell? He scraped the mud aside, expecting a rock or a tree root. Instead, the edge of something metallic gleamed through the filth, smooth, curved, and a vivid cherry red, like a candy apple left to rot. Eddie knelt, heart picking up, and clawed at the mud with his hands. Yo, Jimmy, get over here. Jimmy trudged over, his Carhartt jacket soaked through. What's that, some old car part? Nah, man, it's bigger. Eddie's fingers traced the outlinear rectangular box, maybe 4 feet long, buried deep. He dug faster, the mud sucking at his gloves, until he uncovered a rusted chrome handle. His stomach twisted. Holy shit, it's an oven, like a kitchen oven. Jimmy frowned, squatting beside him. Who buries an oven 6 feet down? That's some serial killer crap. Eddie forced a laugh, but it came out shaky. He pried at the handle, the hinges groaning like a dying animal. The door wouldn't budge, sealed tight with years of rust and grime. He grabbed a crowbar from his tool bag, jamming it into the gap. Come on, you bastard. With a screech, the door gave way, swinging open in a cloud of damp, earthy stench. The sight hit Eddie like a punch to the gut. Inside, nestled in the blackened interior, were bone-small, fragile, unmistakably human, a child's skeleton, curled up as if asleep, surrounded by scraps of scorched fabric, red velvet, frayed but vivid, with delicate white lace trim. A silver necklace glinted among the bones, its pendant etched with a single word, eternal. Eddie stumbled back, his crowbar clattering to the ground. Jesus Christ, man, it's bones, a kid's bones in this damn oven. Jimmy froze, his face pale as the fog. No way. No freaking way. He scrambled for his radio, voice cracking. Boss, get the cops out here, now. Within 20 minutes, the field was a circus of flashing lights and yellow tape. Pine Ridge PD swarmed the site, their boots sinking into the mud as they cordoned off the pit. Detective Carl Morrison, 55, with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much, stood over the oven, his trench coat flapping in the wind. The rain streaked his glasses, but he didn't bother wiping them. He'd been on the force 30 years, worked every case from bar fights to missing kids, but this was something else. Something that clawed at the back of his mind, dragging up memories of a case he'd botched in '95, a little girl he couldn't save. Careful with that, Morrison barked as a young officer photographed the oven. We need every inch documented. No screw-ups. He crouched, peering into the open door. The bones were tiny, no older than 8 or 9, he guessed. The fabric scraps tugged at hemorrhaged velvet, lace trim. He'd seen a dress like that before, hadn't he? 9 years ago, in a file he'd never closed. Detective, said Officer Reyes, holding a clipboard. Forensics says the oven's a Westinghouse, Gourmet series, mid-60s. Candy apple red, limited run. Weird choice for a burial. Morrison nodded, his jaw tight. Weird ain't the half of it. He pulled out his cellphonia, clunky Motorola, barely holding a signal out here, and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. The line rang twice before a tired voice answered. Sarah Whitmore. Sarah, it's Carl Morrison, Pine Ridge PD. He kept his tone steady, professional, but his gut churned. I'm sorry to call so early, but we need you down at the old field off Route 12, the cursed ground. A pause, long and heavy. What's this about Carl? Sarah's voice was quiet, like she already knew. We found something. Remains, in an old oven. Could be connected to Emma's case. The phone went silent. Then a crash glass or ceramic, shattering on a kitchen floor. You found her? Sarah's words came out raw, barely a whisper. We found remains. Small. There's a dress fragmented, with white lace. I need you to come identify it. Morrison hated this part, the part where hope and horror collided. Sarah, it's gonna be tough. You got someone who can drive you? I'll manage. Her voice hardened, but he heard the tremor beneath. 20 minutes. She hung up, and Morrison stared at the oven, the red enamel glaring against the mud. The necklace caught his eye again. Eternal. It didn't fit, didn't belong. He'd seen Emma's case file 1,000 times, every detail burned into his brain. No necklace like that. So whose was it? Sarah Whitmore's old Ford Taurus skidded to a stop at the edge of the field, wipers slapping against the rain. She was 51 now, her blonde hair streaked with gray, her face lined with 9 years of grief. The library job kept her afloat, but mornings were still a battle, every sunrise a reminder of Emma's absence. She stepped out, her sneakers sinking into the mud, and pulled her raincoat tight. The police lights flashed through the fog, an eerie strobe that made her stomach lurch. Morrison met her at the tape, his face grim, but kind. Sarah, thanks for coming. I know this ain't easy. Where is she? The words came out sharper than she meant, her voice cracking like dry wood. This way. He guided her toward the pit, his hand hovering near her elbow. I gotta warn you, it's rough. The flooding last month shifted a lot of soil, brought this thing up. One of the crew found it this morning in oven, buried deep. An oven? Sarah's mind snagged on the word, absurd and grotesque. She ducked under the tape, her eyes locking on the object ahead. It sat on a blue tarp, surrounded by forensic techs in white suits. A vintage Westinghouse, its cherry red enamel dulled by rust but still vibrant, like blood under moonlight. The door hung open, revealing the horror inside. Sarah's knees buckled. She caught herself on Morrison's arm, her breath hitching. The bones were so small, too small, curled in a fetal position, but it was the fabric that broke her. Red velvet, scorched and frayed, with delicate white lace trim. Emma's dresser, princess dress, the one she'd worn to her 6th birthday, chocolate frosting smeared on her cheeks. Sarah could still hear her giggle, see her twirling in the backyard, demanding to wear it to church every Sunday. No, Sarah whispered, the word tearing from her throat. Then louder, a scream that silenced the techs. No. She sank to the mud, hands clawing at the ground, sobs racking her body. That's her dress, Carl. That's my baby's dress. Morrison knelt beside her, his own eyes wet. I'm so sorry, Sarah. We'll need DNA to confirm, but the dress, the size, it's likely her. Sarah's fingers dug into the mud, cold and slick, as if she could claw her way back to 1999, to the backyard where Emma played with her dolls. 9 years. 9 years of searching, of flyers on telephone poles, of sleepless nights jumping at every phone call, and now this a rusted oven, a grave no mother could imagine. The techs resumed their work, photographing, bagging evidence. A young woman in a forensic suit held up a clear bag with the necklace. Detective, this was with the remains. Silver, engraved with eternal. Mean anything? Sarah's head snapped up, her tears blurring the bag. Eternal? She wiped her eyes, focusing. The pendant was simple, a small oval, the word etched in elegant script. That's not Emma's. She didn't have anything like that. Morrison took the bag, turning it over. You're sure? Positive. Sarah's voice steadied, a flicker of something new cutting through the grief confusion, maybe anger. Who put that there? Why? We'll figure it out, Morrison said, but his tone was uneasy. He gestured to the oven. Forensics says she didn't die right away. The bones suggest she was alive for a couple years after 99, maybe till 2001 or 2002. Sarah's heart stopped. Alive? The word felt like a blade. You're saying she was out there, somewhere, for years? While I was. Her voice broke, the weight of it crushing her. While she was mourning, begging, losing herself, Emma was alive, scared, alone. We don't know enough yet, Morrison said quickly. But we'll find out, I promise you that. Sarah nodded, numb, her eyes drifting back to the oven. The red was so specific, not fire engine bright but deeper, richer, like candy apples at the county fair. Something about it nagged at her, a memory she couldn't place. And then she heard it, a faint, high-pitched giggle, like a child's, carried on the wind. She spun around, scanning the fog, but the field was empty, just cops and mud, and that damn oven. Sarah? Morrison touched her shoulder. You okay? Did you hear that? She asked, her voice barely audible, a laugh, like her. 5-1. Morrison's brow furrowed. Just the wind, probably. This place plays tricks. But he glanced at the trees, uneasy, and Sarah knew he'd heard the stories too. They walked back to her car, the rain heavier now, soaking her hair. Morrison handed her a folder with preliminary photos of the scene. We'll need you to come by the station later, go over the dress, any details you remember. But take a few hours, get some rest. Rest? Sarah laughed, bitter and hollow. You think I can rest after this? I know you can't, he said softly. But you're gonna need your strength. This is just the start. She climbed into her Taurus, the folder heavy in her hands. As she started the engine, she opened it, flipping to the top photo, a close-up of the oven's lid. The text had cleaned off some mud, revealing a faint, deliberate scratch, a letter X, inside a circle, like a brand. Sarah's breath caught. She'd seen that symbol before on a jacket, maybe, or a sign. Her mind raced, trying to pin it down, but it slipped away like the fog. The wipers screeched across the windshield as she pulled onto Route 12, the police lights fading in her rear view. Her hand shook on the wheel, the photo burning a hole in her passenger seat. 9 years ago, Emma vanished from her backyard, and Sarah had spent every day since blaming herself. Now her baby was bones in a red oven, with a stranger's necklace and a carved symbol that felt like a taunt. Someone had kept Emma alive, hidden her, killed her. Someone who knew that dress, that field, that curse. And as Sarah drove into the rain, a single thought clawed at her, sharp and unyielding. Whoever did this is still out there. Sarah Whitmore's kitchen smelled of burnt coffee and despair, the kind of stale air that clung to a house nobody lived in anymore, just survived. It was 9:15 a.m., the 17th of October, 2008, and the rain outside Pine Ridge, Oregon, hadn't let up, drumming on the roof of her 1970s ranch-style home like a funeral march. The thermostat read 62 degrees Fahrenheit, but Sarah felt colder, her hands trembling as she clutched the folder of crime scene photos from Detective Morrison. That red oven, those tiny bones, the scrap of Emma's princess dress, it was all real, not some nightmare she could wake from. 9 years ago, her daughter vanished from the backyard, and now the truth was clawing its way out of the mud. She sat at the Formica table, the same one where Emma used to scribble crayon masterpieces, and opened the folder. The top photo stared back. The Westinghouse oven, cherry red, its door yawning open like a scream frozen in time. The carved symbol on the Lydan X inside a circle burned into her brain. She'd seen it before, hadn't she? Maybe on a delivery truck, or a jacket in the hardware store. Her mind churned, grasping at fragments, but nothing stuck. The necklace, eternal, was another splinter under her skin. Emma never owned anything like that. So who left it with her bones? The doorbell jolted her, a shrill buzz that made her knock over her coffee mug. Black liquid pooled across the table, soaking the folder's edge. "Damn it," she muttered, grabbing a dish towel. She shuffled to the door, her slippers scuffing the worn linoleum, and peered through the peephole. A familiar figure stood on the porch, rain dripping from a black umbrella. Lisa, her older sister, 54, with sharp green eyes and a no-nonsense bob cut. Sarah hadn't seen her in 2 years, not since their last fight over Mark. Sarah opened the door, the damp air rushing in. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" Lisa lowered her umbrella, revealing a face lined with worry and too much caffeine. "Heard about the field on the radio. Drove down from Portland last night. You okay?" Her voice was all business, but her eyes softened, taking in Sarah's pale cheeks and red-rimmed eyes. "No," Sarah said, stepping aside to let her in. "I'm not. Lisa kicked off her muddy boots and hung her coat on the rack, moving with the efficiency of a woman who'd spent decades chasing deadlines as an investigative reporter. She glanced at the spilled coffee and the folder. "That the case file?" Sarah nodded, wiping her hands on her jeans. "They found her, Lisa, in an oven, buried out on Route 12. Her dress. God, it's her dress." Lisa pulled her into a hug, quick but fierce. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. But we're gonna figure this out, you hear me? Whoever did this, they're not getting away." Sarah pulled back, her throat tight. "You always thought it was Mark, didn't you?" Lisa's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. "Yeah, I did. Still do. Guy drank like a fish, Sarah. I saw him lurking around your house after the divorce, watching you like some creep. You're telling me that's normal?" "He was her father," Sarah snapped, old defenses flaring. "He loved Emma. He was at the store when she disappeared. Cameras proved it." "Cameras don't prove shit if you know how to game them," Lisa said, crossing her arms. "Look, I'm not here to fight, but I've been digging into some stuff. Missing kids in Oregon, 97 to 2000. There's a pattern, Sarah. Girls, 6 to 9, vanishing from small towns. One case in 97, a girl named Lily Carter, had an oven involved too. No body, just the oven, same model. Found in a ditch near Blackwater Swamp." Sarah's stomach lurched. "You think it's connected?" "I don't know yet," Lisa admitted, pulling a notebook from her bag. "But I'm working on it. Got a contact in Salem who's pulling records. We need to start somewhere, so let's go talk to Harold Hansen." "You said he knew about that oven, right?" Sarah hesitated, the weight of the morning pressing down. But Lisa was right. Sitting here, drowning in grief, wouldn't find answers. She grabbed her raincoat and the folder. "His shop's on Cedar Street. Let's go." Harold Hansen's appliance repair shop was a time capsule, a narrow storefront crammed with toasters, radios, and ancient refrigerators that hummed like dying bees. The air smelled of motor oil and old metal, and a bell jingled as Sarah and Lisa stepped inside. It was 10:30 a.m., the rain still pounding outside, and the shop's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. Harold, 78, with thick glasses and hands scarred from decades of wrench work, looked up from a dismantled microwave on his workbench. "Morning, ladies," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Help you with something?" Sarah swallowed, her throat dry. "Harold, it's Sarah Whitmore. I need to ask you about an oven." His face sobered, recognition dawning. "Heard about the field? That Westinghouse they found, that's got to do with Emma, don't it?" Sarah nodded, sliding a photo from the folder across the counter. "This is it. Detective Morrison said it's a 64 gourmet series, candy apple red. You ever see one like this?" Harold adjusted his glasses, studying the photo under his bench light. His eyebrows shot up. "Well, I'll be damned. That's it, all right. Westinghouse GS 1964, limited run. That red candy apple deluxe, they only made it from 64 to 67. I worked for Westinghouse back then, designed parts for their high-end models." He paused, his voice dropping. "Sold one just like it, spring of 98. Stuck in my mind, 'cause it was a cash deal, no paperwork." Sarah's heart skipped. "Who bought it?" Harold shuffled to a shelf lined with dusty ledgers, his fingers tracing the spines. "Let me check." He pulled down a book labeled 1000, 998, flipping through pages of neat handwriting. Here we go. April 8th, 1998. Westinghouse GS 1964, $450, cash, no name. Guy was middle-aged, brown hair, real particular. Wanted to know if it could hit 500 degrees Fahrenheit and stay sealed tight. Ain't nobody cooking a roast at that heat. Lisa leaned in, her voice sharp. What did he look like? Anything stand out? Harold scratched his chin, thinking. Average, I guess. About 5'10", wore a flannel shirt, but his questions were off. Asked about heat retention, door seals, like he was building something, not baking pies. Made my skin crawl, but cash is cash. Sarah's hands clenched the counter's edge. Harold, this is important. Did he say anything else? A name? A reason? Harold shook his head, didn't give a name. Said it was for a special project. I figured he was some retro nut, you know, fixing up a vintage kitchen. He hesitated, then added, there was one thing. He had a patch on his Jackatan X in a circle. Thought it was a company logo or something. Sarah's blood ran cold. The symbol from the oven. You're sure? Clear as day, Harold said. Why? Lisa cut in before Sarah could answer. Harold, you got any other sales like that? Same model, same time frame? Harold flipped back in the ledger, his finger stopping on a page. Funny you ask. Sold another one, November 97, same model. Cash again, different guy. Didn't ask weird questions though. Just wanted it for his cabin. Sarah's mind raced. 2 ovens, 2 years before Emma vanished. Can we see that page? Harold slid the ledger over, and Sarah snapped a Polaroid of the entry with the shop's old camera, her hand shaking. The flash popped, freezing the moment. Thanks, Harold. This helps. Hope it does, he said, his voice heavy. That little girl deserved better. By noon, Sarah and Lisa were parked outside Clara Thompson's house, a sagging bungalow 2 blocks from Sarah's place. Clara, 80, had been their neighbor in 99, a nosy but kind widow who'd baked cookies for Emma. Now she was half lost to dementia, her memory a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, the air damp and heavy at 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Sarah clutched the Polaroid of Harold's ledger, her stomach nodded. You sure about this? Lisa asked, sipping a gas station coffee. Clara's not exactly reliable. She saw everything back then, Sarah said. If anyone noticed something off, it's her. They knocked, and Clara's daughter, Ellen, let them in. The house smelled of mothballs and lavender, the living room cluttered with knickknacks and faded photos. Clara sat in a recliner, her white hair a wispy halo, her eyes distant. Who's there? She asked, voice quavering. It's Sarah, Clara. From down the street, remember? Sarah knelt beside her, forcing a smile. I need to talk about Emma, my daughter. Clara's face lit up, then clouded. Little Emma, such a sweet girl, always wore that red dress, twirling like a princess. Her hands twisted a tissue, shredding it. She's gone, isn't she? Sarah's throat tightened. Yeah, Clara. We found something. I need to know if you saw anything the day she disappeared. The 15th of September, 1999. Anyone near our house? Clara's eyes darted, unfocused. That day. Oh, it was sunny, wasn't it? I was watering my roses. Saw a man, yes, a man with a red box. Big, shiny, like a present. He said it was for the little girl, but his eyes were wrong. Sarah's pulse quickened. A red box? Like an oven? Clara nodded, her voice dropping to a whisper. Carried it to your backyard. Said he was fixing something for Mark. But Mark wasn't there, was he? No, he was at the store. She trailed off, muttering, red box, red box. Lisa leaned forward, gentle but firm. Clara, what did he look like? The man? Clara's hand shook, tall, dark hair, smiled too much, had a funny patch on his sleeve, like a letter in a ring. She pointed a trembling finger at the Polaroid in Sarah's hand, like that. Sarah glanced at the ledger photo, her heart pounding. The X in a circle again. Clara, did you tell the police? Didn't think it mattered, Clara said, tears welling. I'm sorry, Sarah, I should have said something. Ellen stepped in, apologetic. She gets confused, mixes things up, but she kept this. She handed Sarah an envelope, yellowed with age. Found it in her desk. It's addressed to Emma, from 99. Sarah opened it, her fingers numb. Inside was a handwritten note, the ink faded, but legible. Wait for me by the back gate, princess. It's a surprise. Your friend. No signature, no return address. The words hit like a fist. Someone had lured Emma. Someone who knew her, knew the gate, knew Sarah's routine. Jesus, Lisa whispered, reading over her shoulder. This changes everything. Sarah stood, clutching the note, her mind spiraling. We need to get this to Morrison, now. Back at her house by 2 p.m., Sarah paced the living room, the note and Polaroid spread on the coffee table. Lisa was on her phone, barking at her contact in Salem for more on the 97 case. The rain had stopped, but the sky stayed gray, casting shadows through the windows. Sarah's eyes kept drifting to the backyard, visible through the sliding glass door. The swing set was still there, rusted and sagging, where Emma had played her last tea party, the 15th of September, 1999. A sunny day, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, the air sweet with cut grass. Sarah had been folding laundry, checking on Emma every 15 minutes. At 3:15 p.m., Emma was giggling, arranging her dolls. At 3:30, she was gone, the gate unlatched, her dolls scattered in the dirt. Sarah sank onto the couch, memories flooding back. She'd screamed Emma's name, searched the street, called Mark at the hardware store. He'd rushed home, pale and shaking, while the cops combed the neighborhood. The cameras at Whitmore's hardware showed Mark at the register from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., his alibi airtight. But Clara's story, the note, the oven, they cracked that alibi open like a rotten egg. Lisa hung up, her face grim. My guy found something. That 97 case, Lily Carter? Cops found a Westinghouse oven near Blackwater Swamp. Same model, candy apple red. No body, but it had a symbol scratched on Iden X in a circle. Case went cold, but Sarah, this isn't a coincidence. Oh. Sarah's hand shook, the note crumpling in her fist. Someone planned this, watched us, knew when I'd be inside, when Emma'd be alone. Exactly, Lisa said. And Mark's not off the hook. He drank like a sailor. Sarah, I saw him parked outside your house after the divorce, just sitting there, staring. You think that's a grieving dad? Sarah wanted to argue, to defend the man who'd taught Emma to fish, who'd cried at her first steps. But the symbol, the oven, Clara's man with the red box, it was too much. What do? We dig, Lisa said. Starting with Mark, and anyone else who was around back then. Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. She grabbed her purse, tucking the note and Polaroid inside. But as she stood, a memory hit her, a photo in Emma's old keepsake box, buried in the attic. Mark at a 4th of July barbecue, 1998, standing with a man she didn't know. The man wore a jacket, and on it, a patch, an X in a circle. Lisa, wait, Sarah said, racing to the attic stairs. She yanked the cord, the bulb flickering to life, and dug through dusty boxes until she found Ida's shoebox labeled Emma's treasures. Inside, among crayon drawings and a tiny bracelet, was the photo, Mark, grinning, a beer in hand, next to a tall man with dark hair and a fake smile. The patch on his jacket was unmistakable. Oh my God, Sarah whispered, her heart pounding. Who is this guy? Lisa took the photo, her eyes narrowing. We need to show Morrison. If this is our guy, he's tied to Mark. Sarah nodded, slipping the photo into her purse. They headed for the door, but as Sarah reached for the knob, a sharp knock echoed through the house. 3 hard raps, urgent, almost angry. The clock read 2:45 p.m. Morrison wasn't due until 4 o'clock. Lisa froze, her hand on her phone. Who's that? Lisa whispered. Sarah peered through the peephole, her breath catching. The porch was empty, rain pooling on the welcome mat. But at the edge of the yard, near Emma's swing set, A shadow moved just for a second, then gone. Her skin prickled, the air suddenly colder. Sarah? Lisa's voice was tense. What do you see? Nothing, Sarah lied, her hand trembling on the knob. But as she opened the door, a faint giggle carried on the wind, high and childlike, just like Emma's. The sound twisted her heart, and for a moment, she swore she saw a flash of red in the distance address, maybe, vanishing into the fog. The rain was back, a cold, stinging drizzle that soaked Sarah Whitmore's hair as she stood on her porch, staring into the empty yard. It was 3:05 p.m., the 17th of October, 2008, and Pine Ridge, Oregon, felt like it was drowning under a sky the color of wet concrete. The temperature hovered at 46 degrees Fahrenheit, the air sharp, with the scent of pine and mud. That giggle, she'd heard Emma's giggle, or something cruelly close still echoed in her skull, though the swing set in the backyard stood still, its rusted chains gleaming faintly in the gloom. The photo in her purse, Mark with that stranger, and his ex in a circle patch, burned a hole in her thoughts. Whoever he was, he'd been near Emma, near her house, near her life. Lisa snapped her out of it, grabbing her arm. Sarah, we gotta move. Morrison needs to see that photo, and we're not waiting for whoever's creeping around out there. Sarah nodded, her heart still racing. Yeah, okay, let's go. She locked the door, her fingers fumbling with the key, and they climbed into Lisa's beat-up Subaru Outback, the heater blasting stale air. The folder with the note, Polaroid, and crime scene pics sat heavy in Sarah's lap, each piece a jagged shard of the puzzle that was Emma's death. As they pulled onto Main Street, Lisa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, cursing under her breath. My guy in Salem. Says he's got something on that 97 case Lily Carter. A witness saw a guy with a red oven near the swamp, same symbol on his truck, an X in a circle. Sound familiar? Sarah's stomach twisted. It's the same guy. Has to be. Maybe, Lisa said, weaving through traffic. But we need more than a hunch. Morrison's our next stop, then we dig into Mark's life, his store, his buddies, his debts. Guy like him doesn't pull this off alone. Sarah stared out the window, the town blurring past diner, gas station, the old movie theater, with its faded marquee. Pine Ridge hadn't changed much since '99, still a sleepy dot on the map, the kind of place where folks left their doors unlocked and trusted their neighbors. Until Emma. Until trust became a luxury Sarah couldn't afford. The Pine Ridge Police Department was a squat brick building, its flagpole rattling in the wind. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and copier toner, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps. Detective Carl Morrison sat at his desk, his trench coat slung over the chair, a stack of files teetering beside a half-eaten donut. It was 3:45 p.m., and the station was quiet, most officers out handling the chaos at the cursed ground. Sarah and Lisa sat across from Morrison, the folder open between them. Sarah slid the photo of Mark and the stranger forward, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Found this in Emma's keepsake box. Mark, July '98. With some guy I don't know. Look at his jacket, same symbol as the oven. Morrison's eyes narrowed, his fingers brushing the photo. An X in a circle. Damn. He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. I'll run this through our database, see if we can ID him. But Sarah, I gotta be straight with you. Mark's alibi in '99 was solid. Cameras at his store had him from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., no gaps. We checked every angle. Then check again, Lisa snapped, her voice like a whip. You missed something, Carl. That note we found, someone lured Emma out of the yard. Knew her routine, knew Sarah's. And now we've got 2 ovens, 2 cases, same symbol. You telling me that's a coincidence? Morrison sighed, his face etched with the weight of 30 years on the job. I'm not saying anything yet, but I'll pull Mark's file, dig into his finances, his contacts, then I'll talk to him myself. He tapped the note, its words stark against the yellowed paper. Wait for me by the back gate, princess. This is new. We'll trace the handwriting, see if it matches anyone in our system. Sarah's hands clenched in her lap. What about the necklace? Eternal. It's not Emma's. You find anything on that? Not yet, Morrison admitted. But forensics is working on it. They're also dating the bones. Looks like she died around 2001 or 2002. Means she was alive for 2, maybe 3 years after she disappeared. The words hit Sarah like a brick. Alive. Her baby, out there, scared, while Sarah had been stapling flyers to telephone poles, begging strangers for tips. Where was she, Carl? Who had her? We'll find out, Morrison said, his voice firm but tired. But you need to let us do our job. Go home, Sarah. Rest. Rest? Sarah laughed, bitter and sharp. You think I can rest knowing someone kept my daughter for years before? She choked on the word, tears burning her eyes. Lisa squeezed her shoulder. We're not stopping, Carl. I've got a lead on a property. Mark owns a warehouse out on Old Mill Road. Been abandoned since his dad died in '95. If he was hiding Emma, that's a good place to start. Morrison's brow furrowed. You're not cops, Lisa. Don't go poking around. If Mark's involved, he's dangerous. Too late, Lisa said, standing. We're already in this. Sarah followed her out, the photo of the stranger tucked in her purse. As they stepped into the rain, a voice called from behind. Sarah, wait! She turned to see David Carlson jogging toward them, his suit jacket damp, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. 50, with a lawyer's polish and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. David had been Sarah's brief attempt at moving on in '99, a book club fling that fizzled after 6 months. Now he was back, a partner at a law firm in town, offering help she wasn't sure she wanted. David? Sarah frowned. What are you doing here? Heard about the field, he said, catching his breath. Figured you'd be here. I want to help Sarah. If Mark's tied to this, I can pull strings, get you a good attorney, make sure he pays. Lisa raised an eyebrow, skeptical. That's generous, but why the sudden interest? David's smile faltered. Mark wasn't exactly a fan of me back then. After we dated, he showed up at my apartment one night, drunk, waving a tire iron. Said if I didn't leave you alone, he'd bury me where nobody'd find me. I left town for a year, Sarah. Didn't tell you because I didn't want to scare you. And Sarah's blood ran cold. Why didn't you tell the police? I was young, stupid, David said, shoving his hands in his pockets. Thought he was just blowing off steam. But now, with Emma, I can't stay quiet. Lisa crossed her arms. Convenient timing, Carlson. You know anything about a warehouse on Old Mill Road? David's eyes flickered, just for a second. Mark's old man owned it. Used it for storage, I think. Shut down years ago. Why? Just a hunch, Lisa said, her tone clipped. Thanks for the offer, but we've got this. Sarah studied David, unease creeping in. He'd always been charming, quick with a smile, but that flicker guilt, maybe, or something darker set her nerves on edge. I'll call you if I need you, she said, turning away. As they climbed into the Subaru, Lisa muttered, Guy's hiding something. Bet my left boot on it. Old Mill Road was a 3-mile stretch of cracked asphalt, flanked by dense pine forest and the ghosts of Pine Ridge's lumber days. The warehouse loomed at the end, a hulking relic of corrugated metal, its roof sagging under years of neglect. It was 6:30 p.m., the sky a bruised purple, the temperature dipping to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Sarah's flashlight cut through the dusk, its beam dancing across rusted chains on the warehouse door. Lisa carried a crowbar, her jaw set. This place gives me the creeps, Sarah whispered, her breath fogging in the air. The wind whistled through the trees, carrying a faint, eerie hum like a child's lullaby, warped and wrong. Creepy's our specialty, Lisa said, jamming the crowbar into the lock. The chain snapped with a clang, and they slipped inside, the door groaning shut behind them. The air was stale, heavy with dust and motor oil, and their flashlights revealed a maze of crates, old tools, and cobwebs thick as lace. Sarah's sneakers crunched on broken glass, each step echoing in the cavernous space. Split up? Lisa suggested, her voice low. No way, Sarah said, her grip tightening on the flashlight. We stick together. They moved deeper, the beams catching glints of metal and shadow. Sarah's heart pounded, every creak of the building sounding like footsteps. At the far end, tucked behind a stack of pallets, was a steel door, padlocked and painted black. A faint scratch marked its surface, an X in a circle. "Lisa," Sarah hissed, pointing. "Look." Lisa's eyes widened. Bingo. She attacked the padlock with the crowbar, the metal screeching until it gave way. The door swung open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. A cold draft wafted up, carrying the faint scent of paint and something sweeter, like candy gone bad. Sarah's legs felt like jelly, but she followed Lisa down, the stairs creaking under their weight. At the bottom was a concrete room, maybe 10 by 12 feet, its walls painted a faded pink. A child's bed sat in the corner, its princess sheets neatly tucked. Shelves held books, Charlotte's Web, The Secret Garden, and toys for a girl, 6 to 9 years old. Dolls with handmade dresses, a box of crayons, a small keyboard with chipped keys. On the wall, scrawled in childish marker, were drawings, a red oven, flames curling from its door, and a figure labeled Monster, with glowing red eyes. Sarah's knees buckled. Oh God, Emma was here. Her voice broke, tears streaming down her face. She was right here, Lisa, all this time. Lisa's flashlight swept the room, her face pale. This isn't just a hideout, it's a damn prison. She kicked at a rug, revealing a trapdoor, but it was bolted shut. We need to call Morrison. Sarah barely heard her, drawn to a doll on the bed, Emma's favorite, a rag doll with a missing button eye. She picked it up, her fingers brushing something hard inside. With trembling hands, she tore the seam, pulling out a small notebook, its pages filled with Emma's handwriting. The words were shaky, a mix of crayon and pencil. "Chubby Mert says he'll save me, but I'm scared. He has a knife. He talks to Daddy. They fight loud." Sarah's breath caught, her eyes scanning the last entry. "Today I saw Chubby Mert with Daddy. He said I'm not going home. I hid this so Mommy can find me." The date was smudged, but the year was clear, 2001. "Lisa, look at this," Sarah whispered, handing her the notebook. There was someone else, someone Emma called Chubby Mert. Lisa's face hardened. "Mark wasn't alone. We need to." She froze, her flashlight flickering. A thud echoed from above, heavy and deliberate, like boots on the warehouse floor. Sarah's heart stopped. What was that? Lisa grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the stairs. "Someone's here." And they crept up, the flashlight beams shaking. The warehouse was darker now, the dusk outside swallowing what little light remained. Another thud, closer, then a scrape, metal on metal. Sarah's pulse roared in her ears, the notebook clutched to her chest. They reached the main floor, crouching behind a crate, when the overhead lights buzzed to life, flooding the space with harsh white. A man's voice cut through the silence, low and gravelly. "You ladies shouldn't be here." "Hi." Sarah peered over the crate, her blood turning to ice. A figure stood by the door, his silhouette tall and broad, a flashlight in one hand, something glinting in the other, a crowbar, maybe, or worse. The lights flickered, casting his face in shadow, but Sarah saw the patch on his jacket, an X in a circle. Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible, "Sarah, run." But Sarah couldn't move, her eyes locked on the man, the notebook burning in her hands. Whoever he was, he knew Emma's secret, and he wasn't letting them leave. The warehouse lights buzzed like a swarm of angry hornets, casting jagged shadows across the rusted crates and broken glass. Sarah Whitmore crouched behind a splintered pallet, her heart hammering so loud she swore it echoed off the metal walls. The air was thick with dust and the sour tang of old oil, the temperature a bone-chilling 38 degrees Fahrenheit. It was 6:45 p.m., the 17th of October, 2008, and the Pine Ridge warehouse on Old Mill Road felt like a tomb. Lisa gripped her crowbar, her breath shallow, as the man's voice low, gravelly, and laced with menace cut through the silence again. "You ladies shouldn't be here," he said, his boots thudding closer, each step a deliberate taunt. The beam of his flashlight swept the room, slicing through the gloom. Sarah's fingers tightened around Emma's notebook, its pages crinkling against her chest. The words inside Chubby Mert, knife, Daddy burned in her mind, each one a shard of the nightmare that had stolen her daughter. She peeked over the crate, her eyes locking on the man's jacket, an X in a circle, the same symbol etched on the red oven, on the stranger's patch in the '98 photo. Her stomach lurched. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a predator. Lisa whispered, her voice barely a hiss. Sarah, we gotta move. Now. But before Sarah could respond, the man stepped into the light, and her blood turned to ice. It was Harold Hansen, the old repairman, his thick glasses glinting under the fluorescence. His face was grim, the crowbar in his hand gleaming with intent, but his eyes held something soft to regret, maybe, or fear. Harold? Sarah's voice cracked, confusion warring with dread. What the hell are you doing here? He lowered the crowbar slightly, his shoulders sagging. Saw you poking around my shop, asking about that oven. Knew you'd end up here, this place. It's trouble, Sarah. You need to leave. Lisa stood, her crowbar raised like a weapon. Trouble? You're the one sneaking around with a damn crowbar, old man. Start talking. Why's that symbol on your jacket? Harold's eyes darted to his sleeve, where the X in a circle patch was stitched. He cursed under his breath, wiping sweat from his brow despite the cold. It's from Westinghouse, back in the '60s. Company badge for engineers. Didn't think nothing of it till you showed me that photo, but I swear, I ain't part of this. Then why are you here? Sarah snapped, stepping out from the crate, notebook still clutched tight. You knew about the oven, Harold. You sold it, and now you're following us? Harold's hand shook, the crowbar clattering to the floor. I sold 2 of them, all right. One in '97, one in '98. The '98 guy was weird, asked about heat seals, like I told you. But the '97 buyer, his name was Ray. Ray Holt. Drove a delivery truck, had a rap sheet for roughing up kids. I didn't think much of it then, but after Emma went missing, I started wondering. Should have said something, but I was scared. Sarah's knees wobbled. Ray Holt. You're saying he's tied to Emma? I don't know, Harold said, his voice breaking. But he bought that oven, and he had that same look, the kind that makes your skin crawl. I came here to check, make sure no one else got hurt. This warehouse belongs to Mark's family. If Ray was involved, this is where he'd hide. Lisa's eyes narrowed. You're awful convenient, Harold. How do we know you're not covering your own ass? Believe me or don't, Harold said, raising his hands. But I'm telling you, get out before you stir up something you can't handle. Sarah's mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Ray Holt, the oven, the warehouse, Mark. She shoved the notebook into her purse and grabbed Lisa's arm. We're not done, Harold, but we need to talk to Mark. Now. Harold nodded, his face pale. Be careful, Sarah. Ray disappeared in '02, but men like him, they don't just vanish. The drive to Mark Whitmore's cabin in Deer Lake, 40 miles north of Pine Ridge, was a blur of rain-slicked roads and screaming thoughts. It was 8:20 p.m., the temperature dropping to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, the forest pressing in on both sides like a living thing. Sarah's hand shook on the wheel of her Ford Taurus, Lisa in the passenger seat, the notebook open in her lap. The radio played low, some classic rock station fading in and out, but Sarah barely heard it. Her mind was back in '99, in the backyard, Emma's dolls scattered in the dirt, the gate swinging open. Mark had been at the store, his alibi ironclad, but Clara's story, the man with the red box, gnawed at her. And now Ray Holt, a name that felt like poison. You sure about this? Lisa asked, her voice tight. Mark's not going to welcome us with open arms. I don't care, Sarah said, her jaw set. He knows something, that photo, the warehouse, this Ray guy, he's in it. Lisa, I feel it. Lisa nodded, flipping through the notebook. Emma wrote about Chubby Mert fighting with Daddy. If that's Mark and Ray, we're walking into a hornet's nest. The cabin came into view. A rustic A-frame nestled among towering pines, its windows glowing faintly. Mark's pickup, a battered Ford F-150, sat in the driveway, its hood still warm. Sarah parked behind it, her flashlight cutting through the dark as they approached the door. The air smelled of wet wood and something sharper, whiskey, maybe, or despair. Sarah knocked, 3 hard raps, her heart in her throat. The door creaked open, and Mark stood there, 53, his flannel shirt rumpled, his eyes bloodshot and glassy. A half-empty bottle of Jim Beam dangled from his hand, the stench of booze rolling off him like a fog. "Sarah?" His voice slurred, surprise giving way to anger. "The hell you doing here?" "We need to talk," Sarah said, pushing past him, Lisa close behind. The cabin was a mess, empty beer cans on the coffee table, dishes piled in the sink, a stale cigarette haze hanging in the air. But the walls caught her eye. Photos of Emma, some from their old house, framed like shrines. Her 6th birthday, her first fishing trip, her in that red dress, smiling like the world was hers. Mark swayed, slamming the door. "You got no right barging in. What's this about?" Sarah pulled the '98 photo from her purse, shoving it in his face. "This, you and some guy, Mark. Same symbol as the oven they found Emma in. Who is he?" Mark's eyes widened, the bottle slipping from his hand, shattering on the hardwood. "Where'd you get that?" "Answer me," Sarah shouted, her voice raw. "They found her, Mark. Bones in a red oven, her dress. She was alive for years, and you're gonna tell me you knew nothing?" Mark stumbled back, his face crumpling. "I loved her, Sarah. You know that. I was at the store when she—" "Bullshit." Lisa cut in, stepping forward. "Clara saw a guy with a red oven at the house that day. In this warehouse you own? We found a room, Mark. Emma's room, with her drawings, her notebook. She wrote about you fighting with someone she called Chubby Mert. Start talking, or I'm calling Morrison right now." Mark's knees buckled, and he sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "Jesus, Sarah, you think I wanted this? I didn't hurt her. I kept her safe." Sarah's world tilted. "Safe?" The word was a knife, twisting in her gut. "What does that mean?" Mark's voice dropped, barely audible. Ray Holt. He had me by the throat, Sarah. Owed him money from a bad deal in '97 gambling, stupid shit. When you filed for divorce, he said he'd wipe the debt if I let him take Emma. Said he'd keep her somewhere safe, just for a while, to teach you a lesson. Sarah's legs gave out, and she grabbed the armrest to stay upright. "You let him take her? Our daughter? I didn't have a choice." Mark roared, tears streaming down his face. "He was gonna kill me, kill us both. I thought he'd let her go, Sarah, I swear. But he kept her. In that warehouse. I went there sometimes, brought her books, toys, tried to make it okay. You kept her in a cage for 3 years." Sarah screamed, lunging at him, her fists pounding his chest. Lisa pulled her back, her own face pale with shock. "Mark, you son of a bitch," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "Where's Ray now?" "Gone," Mark sobbed. "Disappeared in '02. I don't know what he did to her, Sarah. I stopped going to the warehouse after '01. Couldn't face it. But I didn't kill her, I swear." Sarah's vision blurred, rage and grief choking her. "You're a monster. You let him take my baby, and now she's dead." And Mark reached for her, but she slapped his hand away, stumbling to the coffee table. A shoebox sat there, half hidden under a pile of newspapers. She yanked it open, her hand shaking, and froze. Inside were photos, Emma, older, maybe 8 or 9, her blonde hair longer, her eyes hollow. She was in that pink room, sitting on the bed, clutching her rag doll, and one photo showed Mark with a mantle, dark-haired, wearing a silver necklace with an oval pendant, eternal. Sarah's breath stopped. "This is him." "Ray Holt." Mark nodded, his voice a whisper. "That's him." Lisa snatched the photo, her eyes blazing. "We're taking this to Morrison. You're done, Mark." But Sarah wasn't listening. Her eyes caught a glint under the couch, a key, attached to a tag labeled warehouse. She grabbed it, her mind racing. "We need to go back. There's more in that room." "Sarah." "No," Lisa said, grabbing her arm. "It's too dangerous. Let the cops handle it." But Sarah was already moving, the key burning in her hand. "I'm not waiting. Emma's truth is in there." Mark lunged, his drunken strength surprising, and slammed the door shut, locking it. "You're not going anywhere," he roared, his face twisted with desperation. "Ray's still out there, Sarah. You go digging, he'll come for you." Sarah's heart pounded, trapped in the cabin with a man she no longer knew. She backed toward the window, her hand fumbling for the latch, when a crash echoed from the porch glass shattering, footsteps crunching. Lisa spun, crowbar raised, as Mark's eyes widened in panic. "Who's that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Mark's face drained of color. "He's here." The door rattled, a slow, deliberate knock following. Sarah's flashlight beam caught a shadow through the window, a tall figure, his jacket marked with an X and a circle. The necklace at his throat glinted silver, the word eternal catching the light. A voice, cold and amused, slithered through the door. "Sarah," it said, "you found me." Sarah's blood froze. Ray Holt wasn't gone. He was standing on the porch, and he knew her name. The air in Mark Whitmore's cabin was thick with whiskey fumes and fear, the single bulb overhead flickering like a dying pulse. Sarah Whitmore stood frozen, her back pressed against the cold window, the warehouse key biting into her palm. It was 8:35 p.m., the 17th of October, 2008, and outside, the Deer Lake forest howled with wind, the temperature plunging to 34 degrees Fahrenheit. The knock at the door, slow, deliberate, like a predator toying with prey, still echoed in her ears. Ray Holt's voice slithered through the wood, chilling as the rain-soaked night. "Sarah, you found me." Mark's face was ghost white, his drunken bravado crumbling. "He's here," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Ray. He's gonna kill us." Lisa gripped her crowbar, her knuckles white, her eyes darting to Sarah. "We need to get out, now." Sarah's heart pounded, her mind racing. Emma's notebook, tucked in her purse, screamed with her daughter's words. "Chubi Mert, knife, Daddy." Ray Holt wasn't just a name, he was the monster who'd caged her baby, burned her in that red oven. And now he was here, his silver eternal necklace glinting through the window, the X in a circle patch on his jacket, a taunt from the grave. "Back door," Sarah hissed, inching toward the kitchen. But Mark lunged, his hand clamping her wrist, his booze-soaked breath hot on her face. "You can't run," he slurred, panic twisting his features. "He'll find you, he always does." "Me." Sarah yanked free, her rage flaring. "You let him take her, Mark. You're as guilty as he is." She shoved past him, Lisa on her heels, as the front door rattled again, harder this time, wood splintering under a heavy blow. "Move," Lisa shouted, kicking open the kitchen door. They stumbled onto the back porch, the rain lashing their faces, the forest a black wall beyond the cabin's weak porch light. Sarah's flashlight beam danced wildly, catching the glint of Mark's pickup keys on the counter. She grabbed them, her hand shaking, and sprinted for the Ford F-150, Lisa diving into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life, but as Sarah threw it into reverse, a figure loomed in the rearview, a tall man, dark hair plastered by rain, his eyes cold and unblinking. Ray Holt. He raised a crowbar, slamming it into the tailgate with a deafening clang. Sarah floored the gas, tires spinning on wet gravel, the truck fishtailing as they tore down the dirt road. "Jesus, Sarah, drive." Lisa screamed, clutching the dashboard. Sarah's hands gripped the wheel, her pulse a frantic drumbeat. The road twisted through the pines, branches scraping the truck's sides like claws. Ray's figure shrank in the mirror, but his voice echoed in her head. "You found me." "He knew we were there," she gasped. "How did he know?" "He's been watching," Lisa said, her voice tight. "Mark's not the mastermind, Ray is." "One?" Sarah's phone buzzed weakly, one bar of signal flickering, as they hit the main road. She tossed it to Lisa. "Call Morrison. Tell him Ray's alive, at the cabin." Lisa dialed, her voice clipped as she spoke to the dispatcher. "This is Lisa Whitmore. We're on Mountain Road, coming from Deer Lake. Ray Holt's at Mark Whitmore's cabin, 2847 Deer Lake Road. He's armed. Dangerous. Send backup now." The dispatcher's voice crackled. "Units are en route. Stay safe, ma'am." Sarah's eyes flicked to the rear view, half expecting Ray's headlights to blaze behind them, but the road was empty, just rain and darkness. "We need to go back to the warehouse," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Emma's notebook, there's more there." Answers. Lisa's jaw dropped. "Are you insane? Ray's out there, and you want to go back to his lair?" "I have to," Sarah said, her hands tightening on the wheel. For Emma, Old Mill Road was a black ribbon of asphalt, the warehouse looming like a forgotten beast under the starless sky. It was 9:15 p.m., the temperature now 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the rain turning to sleet that stung Sarah's face as she and Lisa crept toward the rusted door. The warehouse key felt like ice in her hand, the X in a circle symbol etched in her mind. Inside, the air was colder, heavier, the darkness swallowing their flashlight beams like a living thing. They descended the stairs to the pink room, its princess sheets and crayon drawings a gut punch of grief. Sarah's flashlight swept the walls, landing on a new detail-accrued calendar, marked in crayon, stretching from 1999 to 2001. Days crossed off, hundreds of them, each one a silent scream of Emma's captivity. 3 years, Sarah whispered, tears burning her eyes. "She was here, Lisa, right under our noses." Lisa's beam caught a seam in the concrete wall, barely visible. "What's that?" She jammed her crowbar into it, prying until a panel gave way, revealing a second room smaller, darker, its air thick with mildew. Inside were boxes, stacked high, and a metal desk littered with papers. Sarah's heart stopped as she saw the contents, photos of children, none older than 10, their faces haunted. A dozen silver necklaces, each engraved with eternal, lay in a pile, and a ledger, its pages listing names, dates, locations. 5 children, from 1995 to 2001. Emma's name was last, dated the 15th of September, 2001, with a note, Blackwater delivery. "Oh my God," Lisa breathed, flipping through the ledger. "This is a hit list. Ray wasn't just a creep, was a collector." Sarah's hand shook as she found a photo of Emma, dated 2001, her eyes dull, her blonde hair tangled. A man stood beside her, Ray Holt, his arm around her shoulders, his smile sickeningly proud. "He did this," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "He kept her, then killed her." A noise above a sharp thud made them freeze. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed through the warehouse. Lisa's flashlight flickered, then died, plunging them into near darkness. Sarah's beam caught the glint of a figure at the top of the stairs, Ray Holt, his crowbar gleaming, his necklace shining like a beacon. "Thought you'd run," Ray said, his voice smooth as oil, dripping with menace. "But you came back, brave, stupid, and friend." Sarah's legs trembled, but she stood her ground, clutching Emma's notebook. "You're done, Ray. The cops are coming." He laughed, a cold, hollow sound, descending the stairs with predatory grace. "Cops? They've been chasing shadows for years. You think you're the first to find this place?" He tapped the crowbar against the wall, the sound sharp and final. "Emma was special, Sarah. I gave her to Mark, a gift to settle his debt. But she kept fighting, kept screaming for you. Had to make her pure. The oven did that." Sarah's vision blurred with rage, her voice a raw scream. "You're a sick bastard. She was my baby, and you burned her like trash." Ray's smile widened, his eyes glinting like a wolf's. "She climbed in herself, Sarah. Drugged, sleepy, clutching her little bunny. The oven was her sanctuary. No pain, just peace." Lisa lunged, swinging her crowbar, but Ray was faster, dodging and slamming his own into her shoulder. Lisa crumpled, gasping, as Sarah scrambled for the desk, her hands closing on a rusted screwdriver. She spun, driving it into Ray's arm, the blade sinking deep. He roared, dropping the crowbar, blood soaking his sleeve. "Run!" Sarah screamed, grabbing Lisa and hauling her toward the stairs. But Ray was already recovering, his hand yanking a gas valve on the wall. A hiss filled the room, the sharp stink of propane flooding the air. "You'll burn with this place," he snarled, pulling a lighter from his pocket. Sarah's lungs burned as she dragged Lisa up the stairs, the gas thickening, her flashlight beam wavering. They burst into the main warehouse, the door just yards away, when a spark flared behind them, Ray flicking the lighter. Flames erupted, licking the crates, the heat searing Sarah's back as they stumbled outside. The sleet stung her face as she pulled Lisa into the trees, the warehouse glowing orange behind them. Sarah's phone buzzed on bar, just enough. She dialed 911, her voice frantic. "This is Sarah Whitmore, Old Mill Road, warehouse fire. Ray Holt's here. He's trying to kill us. He killed my daughter. Units are en route," the dispatcher said. "Stay clear of the structure." Sarah dropped the phone, her eyes locked on the warehouse as flames climbed the walls. Lisa coughed, clutching her shoulder. "He's insane, Sarah. He's gonna come after us." But Ray didn't follow. Through the smoke, Sarah saw him stagger out, his arm bleeding, his face twisted with rage. He climbed into a rusted Chevy pickup, its door marked with an X in a circle, and peeled out, tires screeching on the wet road. Sirens wailed in the distance, red and blue lights cutting through the fog. Morrison's cruiser skidded to a stop, officers swarming the scene. "Sarah," he shouted, running to her. "You okay?" "He's getting away." Sarah gasped, pointing at the fading taillights. "Ray Holt killed Emma, Carl. He's the one." Morrison radioed for pursuit, his face grim. "We got Mark at the cabin. He's talking, spilling everything. Says Ray forced him to hide Emma, kept her in that warehouse for 2 years. When she got too defiant, Ray ended it. Used the oven, buried it out on the cursed ground." Sarah's knees buckled, and Morrison caught her, his voice steady. "We got him, Sarah. Ray's going down for life, and Mark's spilling everything. Emma's getting justice. But as the flames roared behind them, Sarah's eyes caught something in the mute scrap of paper, half-burned, dropped from Ray's pocket. She snatched it, her hand shaking as she read the scrawled words. "One more, Sarah. Blackwater." Her breath stopped. Blackwater Swamp, 15 miles away, where another oven was found in '97, another child, maybe, still out there. Lisa's eyes widened, reading over her shoulder. "What the hell does that mean?" Sarah clutched the paper, her heart pounding. "It means this isn't over." The Pine Ridge Courthouse was a squat, gray building, its bricks stained by years of Oregon rain. Inside, the air was stale with the scent of polished wood and nervous sweat. The thermostat stuck at a clammy 65 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the chilly October morning in 2009. Sarah Whitmore sat in the front row of the courtroom, her hands clenched in her lap, her navy blazer stiff against her shoulders. The past year had been a blur of interrogations, evidence bags, and sleepless nights, each one haunted by the image of Emma's bones in that red oven. Her notebook's words burned into Sarah's soul. "To be murdered. Knife, Mommy, find me." Now, 11 years after Emma vanished, justice hung in the balance. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, reporters scribbling in notebooks, locals craning their necks for a glimpse of the monsters on trial. Ray Holt sat at the defense table, his dark hair slicked back, his eyes cold and unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. The silver eternal necklace was gone, confiscated as evidence, but Sarah could still see it glinting in her nightmares. Beside him, Mark Whitmore slumped in his chair, his once rugged face hollowed by guilt and a year in county lockup. His flannel shirt was replaced by a cheap suit, ill-fitting and wrinkled, a far cry from the man who'd taught Emma to fish. Lisa sat next to Sarah, her reporter's notebook open, her pen tapping a restless rhythm. "You ready for this?" she whispered, her voice tight. "It's gonna be rough." Sarah nodded, her throat dry. "I have to be. For her." The judge, a stern woman with gray curls, banged her gavel, silencing the room. "Order. We'll hear the prosecution's closing arguments." The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed man named Daniels, stood, his voice steady but laced with fury. "Ladies and gentlemen, Ray Holt and Mark Whitmore committed unspeakable crimes. Holt, a predator with a history of child abuse, kidnapped Emma Whitmore on the 15th of September, 1000, 999, and held her in a secret room for 2 years, manipulating her father, Mark, with threats and debts. In 2001, when Emma grew defiant, Holt sedated her, placed her in a Westinghouse oven, and burned her alive. Mark, her own father, enabled this horror, hiding her in a warehouse he owned, providing books and toys to ease his guilt while his daughter suffered. We have Holt's ledger, listing 5 child victims from 1995 to 2001. We have Emma's notebook, detailing her fear of Chubby Mert Holt. We have photos, a VHS tape of their arguments, and the eternal necklaces Holt gave his victims as a sick signature. These men stole a child's life, and they must pay. Ho? Sarah's nails dug into her palms, tears burning her eyes as Daniels described Emma's final moments drugged, curled in that oven, her bunny clutched tight. The courtroom blurred, the prosecutor's words fading into a memory, Emma at 6, twirling in her red dress, giggling as she demanded pancakes shaped like hearts. Sarah had failed her, hadn't she? For 2 years, Emma was alive, locked in that pink room, while Sarah mourned her as dead. The defense argued Holt's lawyer claiming coercion, Mark's pleading alcoholism, but it was hollow, desperate. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. When they returned, the foreman's voice was steady. On the count of first-degree murder, we find Raymond Holt guilty. On the counts of kidnapping and false imprisonment, we find Mark Whitmore guilty. The gavel cracked like a gunshot. Holt stared straight ahead, unblinking, while Mark sobbed, his head in his hands. Life without parole for Holt, the judge declared. 25 years for Whitmore. Sarah exhaled, a weight lifting but not gone. Justice, but not peace. As the bailiff led the men away, Mark turned, his eyes meeting hers. Sarah, I'm sorry, he croaked. I loved her. You don't get to say that, Sarah said, her voice ablade. You held her hand when she was born, Mark, and you locked her in a cage. Emma loved you, and you betrayed her. Taminkversent. Mark's face crumpled, but Sarah turned away, her heart a storm of grief and rage. Lisa squeezed her hand, whispering, You did it, Sarah. She's got justice. But as they left the courtroom, the scrap of paper from Ray's pocket haunted her. One more, Sarah. Blackwater. Another child, another victim, still out there. The X in a circle symbol, the eternal necklaces. It wasn't over. The Pine Ridge Harvest Festival was in full swing 2 weeks later, the town square alive with the smell of apple cider and fried dough, the air crisp at 50 degrees Fahrenheit under a rare sunny sky. Booths lined Main Street, kids darting through with cotton candy, a local band playing Sweet Home Alabama on a makeshift stage. Sarah stood at a booth marked Emma's Light, a non-profit she'd founded to fund searches for missing children. Her hand shook as she set out flyers, each one bearing Emma's smiling face, her blonde curls bright in a photo from her 6th birthday. The booth was simple white tablecloth, a donation jar, a stack of bracelets engraved with Find Them All. Lisa helped, pinning up a banner, her voice brisk. This is good, Sarah. You're turning pain into something real. Emma'd be proud. Sarah managed a small smile, but her eyes kept scanning the crowd, half expecting Ray's cold stare or that damn X symbol. The trial was over, but the note one more. Blackwater nodded at her. Lisa had been digging, pulling records on Blackwater Swamp, 15 miles out, where a similar oven was found in '97. A girl named Lily Carter, vanished at 8, never found. The case file mentioned a witness who saw a truck with an X in a circle logo, but the trail went cold. Until now. A woman approached the booth, her face kind but weathered. You're Sarah Whitmore, right? I'm Ellen, Clara's daughter. I saw you on the news. I'm so sorry about Emma. Sarah nodded, her throat tight. Thank you. Clara helped us, you know. Her memory, it gave us a lead. Ellen hesitated, then pulled a folded paper from her purse. Found this in Mom's things after she passed last month. It's for Emma, from '99. Thought you should have it. Sarah unfolded it, her hands trembling. Another note, in the same scrawled handwriting as the one from Clara's house. You're safe with me, Princess. Don't tell Mommy. No signature, But the words were a punch to the gut. Ray's words, luring Emma to her doom. "There's more," Ellen said, her voice low. Mom kept saying something about a man with black eyes, out by Blackwater. She drew this. She handed Sarah a sketch, crude but chilling, a man in a jacket, his eyes solid black, standing beside a red oven. The X in a circle was scrawled on his sleeve. Sarah's breath caught. "Black eyes?" Ellen nodded. She was scared, kept saying he wasn't Ray. Someone else. "Nen." Lisa leaned in, her voice urgent. "Sarah, this matches the 97 case. The witness described a guy with dead eyes, driving a truck to Blackwater. If Ray had a partner, he's still out there." Sarah's heart raced, the sketch trembling in her hands. She thanked Ellen, tucking the note and drawing into her purse. As the festival hummed around her, she stepped up to a microphone for her speech, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "My daughter, Emma, was taken from me in 1999. For 2 years, she was alive, fighting, while I searched. I failed her then, but I won't fail her now. Emma's light is for her, for every missing child. We'll keep looking, keep fighting, because no one gets forgotten." The crowd applauded, some wiping tears, but Sarah's eyes caught a figure at the edge of the square, a man, tall, in a dark jacket, watching her. The X in a circle patch glinted on his sleeve. She blinked, and he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Her pulse roared, Ellen's sketch flashing in her mind, black eyes. That night, Sarah stood at Emma's grave in Pine Ridge Cemetery, the air cold at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, a light mist settling over the headstones. The stone was simple, engraved with Emma Grace Whitmore, 1993-2001, Forever Our Light. Sarah knelt, placing a red velvet ribbon from Emma's dress beside a bouquet of daisies, her fingers tracing the carved letters. "I'm so sorry, baby," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't find you in time, but I'm fighting for you now. I'll find them all, I promise." A breeze stirred, carrying a faint giggle Emma's, or maybe just the wind. Sarah stood, her purse heavy with the new note, and Clara's sketch. Lisa was waiting in the car, her laptop open to a file on Blackwater, a 2002 missing child case, a boy named Tommy Reed, never solved. The report mentioned a witness who saw a man near the swamp, his jacket marked with an X. Sarah's heart clenched. Ray's note wasn't a taunt, it was a lead. As she walked back to the car, her purse shifted, and something fell out, a silver eternal necklace, identical to the one with Emma's bones. Sarah froze, her breath hitching. She hadn't put it there. She spun, scanning the misty cemetery, but it was empty, silent except for the rustle of leaves. Lisa leaned out the car window. "Sarah, what's wrong?" Sarah held up the necklace, her voice trembling. It was in my purse." Lisa's eyes widened. "That's impossible. The police have all of them in evidence." Sarah's gaze drifted to the sketch in her hand, the man with black eyes, the X on his jacket. She'd seen him at the festival, hadn't she? Or was her mind playing tricks, twisting grief into paranoia? But the necklace was real, cold against her palm, a message from someone still watching. "I'm going to Blackwater," Sarah said, her voice hard. "There's another kid out there, Lisa. I can't stop now." Lisa nodded, her face grim. "Then we go together." "But Sarah, if this guy's real, he's dangerous." Sarah clutched the sketch, Emma's giggle echoing in her mind. "Let him come," she said, her eyes blazing. "I'll find him, whoever he is." The cemetery fell silent, the mist swallowing her words. But as she walked away, a shadow moved among the trees, just out of sight, its jacket marked with an X. A child's laugh carried on the wind, soft and fleeting, leaving a chill that lingered long after Sarah drove away.